Hey, welcome back to Read the World. My name is Derek Main, and I used to review translated literature. I still do. I'm just gonna expand out and do more than that now. I still don't know if I've figured out exactly what it is I want to say or how I want to, you know, I still don't know how to frame a shot. Like I'm not trying to be like I guess a booktuber in any traditional sense. Like I'm sort of suitably turned off by that. I think after I started doing this in November. I wanted to highlight November of last year. I wanted to highlight translated literature, and I did it where I would do I try to do like one a week, one every other week, and just sort of critically review the books from the primarily independent and small presses that I was reading with translated literature, and I really enjoyed it a lot. Um, I still think my Perec, I'm proud of my Perec review from when lockdown first started, and I did like a totally batshit insane review of George Perec's Life's a User Manual with like segmented parts and shit. Well, anyway, I'm trying to do it like simpler now, and yeah, like, so what happened, if you want to just get to the books that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about 5 of them today, that's going to be sort of the new format. If you want to get to those, then just skip ahead like maybe 4-5 minutes, but briefly, since I had a channel and people were like interested in following me and stuff, I thought I would explain kind of like, all right, what was up with the absence, and also like why I'm now going to do stuff other than just translate literature, because I was obviously championing that a lot. I'm still planning on it. So like in May, I'd say May or June, maybe May, of lockdown, I really started to feel like I was missing an opportunity by not working more seriously on my writing, and specifically like saving my writing. So I had a writing routine or what have you. I wrote every day. About deleted 95% of it like at the time. So I would write about 500 words, whatever it was, and then immediately get rid of it. And that stems obviously from a big insecurity and stuff, but it was also just like I had this, I think, misguided artistic notion that letting my thoughts come out that way in written form was a good practice, and that a good practice for my soul, and that immediately deleting them was a good practice for my ego. And what I never, and also like I just didn't feel like smart enough or interesting enough or cool enough or whatever to like write fiction. So anyway, I just decided to sort of get over that, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. I mean, literature is my first love. I mean, obviously reading is incredibly important to me, and writing has always been as well. I wanted to publish, and I wanted to find a group of people that were doing sort of exciting things in the same vein, and be a part of something. And I feel like I have, which is incredible. I'm super happy. I've had my first work published. I have some stuff forthcoming, like in places. It's crazy to me. It's just crazy. And so anyway, so you have a limited amount of free time when you have 2 kids and a full-time job, and my wife has full-time, obviously both of us full-time jobs, and we both work from home. We have 2 kids who do school from home. There's a limited amount of time. And I couldn't do a book review every week or every other week even, and then also work on my writing. So, the writing took and takes precedent. That wins off first. But recently I started to miss this. And so I thought, well, how can I integrate this like as part of my life without it taking away from, what I just said to express it. And I just decided that I was going to just be very, very casual about this. And literally my phone's plugged up right now. I put on video, I pressed play. I'm not going to edit anything. I'm not going to cut anything out. In fact, if I can ever figure out how to do live on YouTube, I'll probably just record them live and let them be there. I'm not going to mess with anything. I mean, unless this stops and like it just like blows up on me, which obviously is entirely possible because I have no idea how to do this shit. Anyway, I'm not doing any setups or anything like that. Like, and so when I'm done, I'm going to figure out how to take it from here and upload it on the computer and put it on YouTube and then press send on a tweet and then be done with it. And that be like my engagement there. And if there's people who still like follow me through this channel or through Twitter that are, that enjoy listening to someone ramble about some books they read and enjoyed, then like I'm here. Otherwise, like it's of course a selfish endeavor. I think that, talking alone about anything, is inherently kind of a selfish endeavor, and I'm okay with that, and I accept that. And I am also like, I guess, a little more accepting now of the fact that it's okay that I have, like, I'm giving myself permission to focus on my writing and my own creative output without thinking so much and being so much in my head about, what are people going to think of me, and what are people going to think of whatever preconceived notions they had before, if they like watched the video or whatever. So I also feel just like a little freer, I guess, to just be me. So I'm gonna talk about some books I like. And that's the idea. Maybe I'll do it like once a month or something, I hope. And the reason I'm going to move away from just translated literature is, the idea of read the world, the idea of reading translated literature in general has a lot to do, to me, with opening up your reading world beyond sort of the obvious things to read. And I think there's a really, really strong, exciting independent press community here in America that I want to champion. And I would go so far as to start naming presses, but I'll just miss some and feel bad. But like today, I'm going to talk about 5 books. 2 of them are translated literature. All of them are technically independent presses, although I think you could argue one way. A couple of them are large independent presses. Then 2 of them are truly independent presses. People that love literature, doing it out of a bedroom, doing it out of the living room, literally, like, packaging up these books, these works, finding these authors and then creating these books and then packaging them up and sending them off to other people, like almost just like this, passing of notes in high school of this secret thing. And there's such a vibrancy there, to those of us who crave literature and those of us who crave that connection that can only exist through reading and writing, or at least that I've only found that exists through there. And so I want to also talk about those people. Now, I did my first like written review. And so I'm still going to do that more often, particularly as things like really strike me. So again, this will be more casual, not critical. So let's start off with one of the translated titles. And this is actually this is a nonfiction. I hardly ever read nonfiction, but it ties into what I'm talking about today. So this is Not to Read by Alejandro Zambra, one of my favorite writers. This is, as you can tell from the beautiful white cover, this is Fitzcarraldo Editions, and it's translated and edited by Megan McDowell, who is his longtime English translator. So this is a collection of reviews, essays and reviews, primarily reviews, where he is writing about other writers, and he's writing about reading. And it is a love letter to reading. Now, I'm going to talk about this, I think, more with Michael from Knowledge Lost. I still plan, and I hope that we still do, me and Michael and then Dan from the Weird Book Club, we do, I don't know, once a month or every couple weeks sometimes, depending on our schedules. Like we'll do like a Wednesday night live thing where we just riff on stuff. And either through that or through Michael's podcast, Knowledge Lost, I think we're going to talk more in depth about some of the works in here. But just stylistically, I'll say, like, Zambra is like having this incredibly articulate, funny, smart friend who is 10 times as well read as you, just kind of sit down next to you and for a page and a half tell you what it is he saw in this particular book. And I really like that. So I'm gonna read a brief passage here from Traveling with Books. This is page 63. I always take books when I travel, even on short trips. When it's time to pack, I choose them fairly impulsively, but the decisions do follow a kind of logic. For example, I tend to bring 2 or 3 novels whose company I feel I need. It's absurd, it's romantic, but I can't help it. I just feel safer with those 2 or 3 novels that I've read many times and that I always keep close by. I can forget my favorite medicine or the cloth for cleaning eyeglasses, but I never forget those novels. I feel it would be dangerous to travel without them. I also bring a book I've never read, some large tome that I'm wary of, but I also think will captivate me once I'm on page 100 and I won't be able to put it down. I have the feeling I'll skip appointments and parties, that I'll only see a few plazas and a couple of monuments because of how absorbed I'll be by that book I hadn't believed in and that was now utterly engrossed me. Needless to say, of course, this never happens, and I return home without having gotten beyond the first paragraph because it has also become a sacred custom not to read it. Not to read. Cool. I like that. And this is, I think I said all the pertinent info. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Look at this cover. It's pretty cool. This is Céline, and I don't know if it's, I'm going to say Céline. I don't know how to pronounce stuff. This is Céline, Journey to the End of the Night. This is translated by Ralph Manheim. It actually has an afterwards by William T. Bowman, and this is a New Directions paperback. So let's get the stuff that most of you probably know out of the way. Céline is an asshole, not a good person in my opinion, in most people's opinion, in any sense. So Céline was a French writer who was tried and convicted of collaborating with the Nazis, and I don't think you can really. I don't know. That's kind of like point one in not just the obituary, but anything you're going to do, to talk about. If you're going to talk about him as a writer, you got to talk about this. I think, unfortunately, I think some of his readers like that aspect about him a little too much. And I'm not claiming that he's like got a bunch of Nazi readers. Not at all. What I mean, though, is that there has become kind of an intrigue with like this concept or idea of like forbidden literature. And I see that now contemporaneously with like Peter Handke, who won the Pulitzer. No, not the Pulitzer. Jeez, the Pulitzer's like that's like the American thing. The Nobel Prize. Yeah. Last year when they did Two at Once and Olga Tokarczuk won one. And Peter Handke won the other, whatever year that was. Peter Handke, and then the other one would be Michael Holbach. And I know I can't pronounce his last name, and I'm sorry, but you know who I mean. So those are 2 contemporary writers that, again, it feels, I think people, and I've read Handke, I've not read Holbach, although I have the Elementary Particles, and I actually plan to read it soon. But anyway, but both of them are, contrarians to the point of being problematic in today's terminology. And so because of that, there becomes sort of this like new contrarian movement to embrace it. And it becomes like, cool or fashionable or whatever to say, well, we're whatever. Why is this all so hard to talk about? Well, because politically I'm a leftist, and I'm not someone who is at all comfortable with a dude who collaborated with the Nazis. I mean, I hate nationalism. I abhor it. I hate nativism. I abhor it. I believe in absolutely no borders. Like, I believe, yeah, I mean, any sort of structure like that you're going to champion that then causes, the mass death and suffering of millions and millions of people, I have to be against. All right, so I certainly don't see reading Céline as any sort of like act of artistic bravery. There's a lot of great books out there, and you can or cannot read this particular writer. But when we focus just on the art, which I feel like I'm capable of doing, and just on the writing, yeah, it's a damn good book. It blew me back, man. I mean, it is written in a kind of everyday cynical language that is really dope, and that you can't believe was written, what is it, 1930? I mean, whenever it was written, right, that time period. And so, I mean, that just, you see the strands of where his, influence kind of like spread out. I mean, on the back, even the back cover, like, Philip Roth declared Céline is my Proust. I mean, certainly you see that he had this huge, and yeah, Volman's got the, he's got the epilogue. So yeah, I loved it. I love the language. I mean, the story, like, it feels autobiographical. I mean, Céline starts off, it's a war story at first, and then it's a story of traveling to and trying to make it in America as a French expat. Then it becomes a story of him returning to France and becoming a rural small town doctor. And throughout it all, you never get the sense that you're not just following Céline's sort of thoughts. I mean, it definitely, I mean, I hate the terms autofiction. I've been talking a lot to people about, I made a comment the other night. I was talking to some people about writing, and we were talking like the delineation between fiction and nonfiction at some point now in 2020 feels like a little, what's the point of it? Like James Frey, like what he did now, like seems awesome. And I think that some of the best fiction tells the truth and some of the best nonfiction lies. And that delineation between fiction and nonfiction kind of all started because around a campfire, one dude told a lie. And before it was all nonfiction. It was just like, I went hunting and I came back and I had a deer, and everybody looked around, they saw the deer, and they're like, all right, that's a cool story, Steven. And then whatever, like one day somebody came back and was like, yeah, I saw a vision. And the vision told me that my wife's going to get pregnant by God and we're going to have a baby. And then all of a sudden we have fiction. We have our lie, our first lie. And of course there was fiction before the Bible, but I use that just as an example because it's one of the most well done, collections of fiction that there is. Well, anyway, Céline's Journey to the End of the Night is really great. Although, I'm going to say this, I think it falls off once he gets back to France at the end. I do not think that this thing propels itself all the way through. The war stuff is incredible, top notch. I actually think you get a sense of why Céline, like, in real life kind of turns the way he does, because he sees the war and there's no distinction for him between the French, between the Germans, between anything. It's all just killing. It's all barbarism. And there's much to agree with on that. I don't take my political logical conclusions anywhere where he took them. I disagree with him badly there. But certainly I agree that his takes on war and stuff are very good. Coming to America, incredible. Best part of the book, probably. And really getting that view of America from this deranged, war trodden down Frenchman is tremendous. I mean, goes to Detroit, try to work at a Ford factory. He's in New York, and he's being followed around the whole time by kind of another version of him, or someone he could have been, or someone he might become. And that's kind of an interesting thread through it. And so sometimes it feels like he's running, from major life event to major life event from this person. But anyway, when he gets back to the France and he sets up as a rule doctor, I actually think that section is not as strong as the rest. And I think that's where the book kind of like lulled me down a little bit. The last 2/3 I was not as excited about. You kind of get used to the writing. This is a big book. I think this edition is about 400 pages, 415 pages. But that's a big book. And so like by that point, you're kind of like, all right, you got the writing style down, like you're enjoying it, but whatever. All right, so those are the two translated. Let's go to the last one of the kind of like large independent presses, and then I'll finish it off with the two like truly indie presses. So I read Fat City by Leonard Gardner, and this is an NYRB classic. Actually, I don't have to show the spine since you can tell from the cover. I got on this book because it is sort of a gritty, book that combines boxing. So the novel set in the Lidio Gym, the Hotel Coma, the Main Street lunchrooms, and dark bars in Stockton, California. So it's the kind of gritty, streets depression book that I'm going to typically love. The intro is by Dennis Johnson, one of my favorite writers. And of course, NYRB is just hits after hits after hits. But I love this book. And I honestly don't have much to say about it. God, I love boxing too. And like, I love the masculinity stuff, but like, this book just didn't work for me. So I don't know if you liked it and I just kind of like missed something. The back, literally like the blurbs are Ross McDonald, who's like noir shit's great, Joan Didion, but like I said, Dennis Johnson introducing it, but I don't even remember much from it. Like, I just remember honestly being bored and like, the two lives of the men like go, in kind of really easy to predict ways. Like it's sort of telegraphed from the beginning a bit, and I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. So next two. House of Vlad Press, Wallop, by Nathaniel, Kennon, Perkins. So when did this come out? This came out, first edition, June 2020, so this year. This is tremendous. I was really impressed. So Nathaniel Kennon Perkins, lives in Boulder, Colorado, okay? So he's got a short story collection from Maudlin House in 2019, The Way Cities Feel to Us Now. It's a great title. And a previous novel that was on Trident Press in 2018 called Cactus. Well, anyway, I had not read him and even read a story of his. I got this because I kind of liked the description and I just thought, I don't know, just something about it like kind of screamed it might be for me. And the description, this Wallop is a budget crust punk epic, an ogle ode set in the house parties and open roads of wasteland America, a manifesto for the crusty dirtbag who's just trying to get anything back on track. So that jacket copy is what got me. Yeah, I used to live in punk houses. I was never in the band that toured. I was always the dude who just like rode in the van with the bands that toured. And I know a little bit about that deal, and I lived a little bit of it. It was a long time ago, 16, 17, no, even longer than that now. God, 20 years. So I really wanted to see a more modern, younger take of that than what my own memories would encompass. And what I got actually, much closer to literature than I think what is maybe feels a little bit like a genre piece when you just read the blurb. And I think that's fine. Like, I'm not like bashing the marketing of it. I think it does well to put it that way. But really the narrator that we're following is very good at articulating the landscapes of each of the places that he goes. So, he is going to hitchhike to, I believe it's St. Louis is where he ends up, or it's middle America. So he's going to hitchhike there from Colorado, And so it's that journey, the people he meets along the way, and then also this brief, time catching up with friends there in St. Louis. And I mean, it's a short novel. It's a short read. I mean, what is it, 100 pages? Yeah, 110 pages maybe. But he is able to sense something changing, some current in the air about like the communal punk spaces now that feels important, and also feels like something that I think he could and hopefully will flesh out more in other works. This is a tale, kind of like a classic tale, right? You've got the hitchhiking across part of America. We're going to go here. It's got that sort of Odyssey vibe, right? But in that crust punk sort of, fashion where everything is about where you're going to get your next pack of smokes or your next six pack, or, who you might sleep with that night, what band you're going to see. And so these accumulations of sin or whatever, are done really well because they're described in kind of angelic ways. And I think that the writer does two things really, really well. One is pacing. So his pacing is on point. Like, I believe he could write a screenplay pretty damn easily, and I believe it would be very good. And actually, this would make a cool movie. Because you do not put it down. I read it in one sitting, and I think most people that pick it up would, just because like you are definitely like, what's next, what's next, what's next? And there's an undercurrent throughout, and we'll talk about the second thing he does now. Second thing he does is a longing for something that is existing in the moment that you kind of have already lost, and you see it being lost in real time. You know that you are losing it and you already miss it. That's really good. That's the heavier stuff in it, and that's really good. And it's that connection back to Colorado, back to a specific person in Colorado. But it's also the scene and the group and the friendships. And maybe this is just being someone older reading it and knowing how all of those things are going to wind up, probably. But that feels good. I really, really liked that. Wallop from House of Vlad. Okay, last one I'm going to talk about tonight is Venice. I'm absolutely, by the way, addicted to this cover. This is from Patio Press. This is by TJ Larkey. Okay. Venice, they had like 3 titles. Patio did something really cool. They're a new press. They did some really cool this fall where they had 3 titles and they did a book bundle. And I think it was like $30 for the 3 titles. So I was like, absolutely, 100%, this is awesome. And so anyway, I don't have the other 2 here. They're downstairs to be able to just go through them. But honestly, the reason I read this one first is because of the cover. So whoever did the cover art, like you win. Look at that. It's fucking awesome. Actually, this whole like camera setup, I have no idea like what's in the frame or what's not in the frame, and that's fine because like, fuck it. But because of that, I actually don't know if you can even see it that well. Hopefully you can. All right, Venice is... Let's start with this back cover. Today's mantra: I will go out and meet people. So, dude moves to Venice. And this dude is weird. Our narrator is so darkly, deeply lost inside of his own head and afraid to leave his house, afraid to leave her apartment, afraid to sort of venture outside, afraid of the touch of skin with other people. Like everything feels like an electrical current designed to like shock him, buzz him, bother him, infiltrate him. His thoughts are scattered and paranoid at times. The writing itself, let's see if I can get you a good sense. You see these like, it almost looks like poetry, it's just one line, but it's not. It's definitely prose. I mean, but let me just read you like this little bit you'll get to see. And I literally flipped to a page, not even one I'd highlighted, page 78, and I'm going to read, I'll read a bit here. I'm lying down in my bed while Monica moves her ass up and down on me. I don't feel much. Maybe I'm too drunk. But it's nice to look at, a very toned and soft ass. It makes me want to take better care of my own ass. Like do squats or trim my asshole hairs more frequently. I don't know. I'm supposed to feel like I've accomplished something in this moment. I try to think back to the events of the night and pinpoint where I said or did something that made her want to come home with me, but nothing sticks out. Maybe I was just there and that was enough. That would be depressing. Sometimes it makes me uncomfortable thinking about how easily people can get intimate with strangers. No, that's childish. I just have intimacy issues. And while intimate, I need to stop thinking about my intimacy issues. I need to focus. Focus on her. I hope she comes. I'm rooting for her. I believe in her. My chances of finishing are slim at this point. Definitely too much booze and too much thinking. I mean, like all that, like that's really good. I mean, you're right there in that head. And it's an uncomfortable place to be, like no doubt. I mean, this person like, I mean, God, like just some therapy would, yeah, definitely. But what it does is it recreates that feeling that you get when you go to that completely new place, when you do something, when you're that young, that is brave and new and daunting, but you're also the type of person who will overthink everything, stays in your own head, and is scared to leave your apartment. And you are now trying to have new experiences. And what is that going to be like or look like or feel like? This is the second title that I read of Back Patio Press. The first title was Kevin Bryce Gonzalez's I Could Be Your Neighbor, Isn't That Horrifying? And I did my first book review on that. I had never written a book review, and I wrote one, and I'm going to write some more, definitely. I was originally going to do, my next one was going to be Ali Rowbottom, I think is her name, her book, The Jello Girls. But as I started to get into it, like I saw it was too memoirish to really do a review of. I mean, it is a memoir, right? And like I didn't totally grasp that when I got it, and I like it a lot. It's really good. Like I recommend it for sure. It's a crazy story. It is dark. It is heavy. But it's just like there's nothing to do. So I listened to First Story Pod, one of my favorite podcasts, do an interview with her. And honestly, that was better than any review. Like that, like kind of sealed it, wrapped it up for me. I am going to review, her husband, John Lindsay, is one of my favorite writers going right now. And he has a book coming out, I think on House of Vlad next year. I'm going to feel real bad if I have the press wrong. But I think it's a collection of stories. I'm definitely going to review that because everything I've read of his is freaking incredible. Anyway, these are the books that I am talking about today. And now I'm tired of talking. Let me know if this new format is like working at all for you or whatever. If you're just like, dude, if you're not going to do a translated lit critical review every time, then just skip it. Thanks, y'all. Be good to folks.